Okay, fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I'm Michael Pachter. I'm happy that you're watching this. I hope it's real time as a Patreon patron, and thank you if you are. If you are a YouTube subscriber, you're also getting this real time. So again, thank you for your patronage there. If you have an Amazon Prime account, please remember to link it to your Twitch Prime account. The instructions are in the show description below. And if you're doing none of those things, then please try to follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter even if you are a Patreon patron, at Michael Pachter. Let's get to today's question. Today's question from SIFTD from Derek D111. Xbox has historically struggled against PlayStation in Europe, and that appears to be happening again with Xbox Series X and PS5. If the European market is the major hurdle holding up Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, would it make more financial sense for Xbox just to leave the European market altogether and have the deal go through? Microsoft they sell fewer Xboxes because Sony's been in the market much, much longer. And I know that that's narrowing, but Sony started in 1995, Microsoft started in 2001. By the time Microsoft sold its 30 millionth console, which was probably 2006, Sony had sold about 200 million. Between the PS1 and PS2, and by the time Microsoft sold its 100th millionth console, Sony had already sold 300 million. So for sure, there's 100 million more Europeans who've owned PlayStations than have owned Xboxes, and probably even more. So they're going to be behind, period. But the reason for the deal is not that they want to sell more Xboxes. The reason for the deal is they want to sell more Game Pass subscriptions. And if you look at how Netflix works in Europe, it's killing it. They're the European, they call it EMEA, European, Middle East, and Africa region is bigger than the U.S. region for Netflix. So that will happen for Game Pass. And Game Pass has 25 million subscribers. PlayStation Plus has 45 million. I would expect that if the Activision deal closes, say a year later, say end of 24, and I'll predict this pretty boldly, Xbox Game Pass will have 50 million subscribers, and they'll probably get 10 million of that incremental 25 from Europe because the value's too good, and people will want to play Call of Duty, and PlayStation owners will want to play Call of Duty on Game Pass plus all the other games that they don't have. If they already have a PlayStation, they won't buy Call of Duty, they'll subscribe to Game Pass instead, and they'll keep buying Uncharted, Last of Us, Days Gone, Sony first party titles on PlayStation, but they will buy their Activision first party titles or third party titles as part of their Game Pass subscription. So I think that they will not pull out of Europe. The other thing is that your question presupposes that Europe's the hurdle. Europe isn't the hurdle. The UK is the hurdle. And I know that you guys all think that Europe is the UK. It's not. UK is about, at most, 1/6 of the European market. I think European market's 330 million people, and the UK is like 60 or 70, so 1/5, something like that. But it's not, gaming wise, it could be as great as the third on console. Gaming PC and console, it's probably more like a fourth or a fifth. So it's really not, that's the hurdle. The EU, I expect, is going to actually roll over and approve the deal, and the US is going to approve the deal. So the UK might be a hurdle, and the way to operate in the UK is just form a new subsidiary called Activision Blizzard UK PLC, which is their incorporated, and have the public company in the UK with an independent board of directors running the business just the way it runs now. So no change, and the UK can't say boo about the deal. The deal will close. So Microsoft will get all the benefits from selling Call of Duty on PlayStation after they own Activision, and they'll get all the benefits from operating World of Warcraft and Candy Crush in Europe, and those are both big markets for Activision. And maybe by putting those things onto Game Pass, they'll sell a few more Game Pass subscriptions in Europe. Remember, Game Pass doesn't require a console, so you don't have to buy an Xbox in order to play Game Pass. You can play it on your PC, and you can play it on at least Samsung smart TVs. Give that about maybe a year, and it'll be on Chromecast and Fire TV Stick and Roku. And if Roku's smart, they'll preempt that and sign a deal like tomorrow and get it on and get people to buy Roku devices and watch their TV on Roku, and they'll make more money. So I expect that they will not withdraw from Europe. It does not make more financial sense, and they still got to pay $95 billion for Activision. So you want the revenue that Activision generates from Europe. If the status quo is maintained, the regulators have no basis to block the deal. All the proposals and all the objections that they've raised so far are, what if Microsoft pulls Call of Duty off PlayStation? I mean, I'm boiling it down to that one issue. There are several. If Microsoft keeps supporting all consoles the way that Activision has been supporting them for the last 25 years, the regulators can't stop the deal. Period. They cannot. Now, some have raised the issue, what if you put Call of Duty on Game Pass because it hasn't been there before? If Microsoft keeps Call of Duty off of Game Pass in those regions, they can't say boo. So what will happen is Microsoft will say, okay, we're going to maintain the status quo. The regulators will say, okay, we're going to sue anyway because we want to keep you from changing your mind in the future. And Microsoft will sign a consent decree that says we will not change anything. We will keep everything as is until we win in court. And if we lose in court, we'll never put this stuff on Game Pass. And when they win in court, then it'll all go on Game Pass. And they will win in court. Lawyer. And I'm right. So no, they're not going to operate the business and not have revenue in Europe. By the way, pulling Call of Duty out of Europe isn't good for consumers. And these regulators are there to make sure that there's more competition, not less. Pulling a title out of the market isn't good. I mean, it's not good. So you're right. It's fully fair to competition by saying, great, we won't produce the game anymore. But that's not what they're going to do. No chance. 0.0% chance.
Could Xbox use that as leverage and be like, look, if you don't let this deal go through, we're going to leave the market altogether.
You can't.
And then no one will get Call of Duty.
They can say it, but you can't threaten the regulators. Regulators don't care.
Well, it's not threatening if you're just saying, this is what we're going to do.
Well, then, I mean, fine, they can, but it wouldn't make economic sense. You wouldn't pay $70 billion for Activision to give up a third or a half of their revenue. You're not going to do that. Period. Not going to happen. So no, they need the revenue. That's what makes a deal worthwhile. Activision does $8.5 billion of revenue a year. If you pulled out of Europe, it would do $5.5 billion of revenue a year. You can't afford to lose $3 billion in revenue. You just can't. And they generate about $4 billion in profit. You can't afford to lose the revenue, in cash. That would drop to $2 billion. It's not worth it. It's worth half the $95 a share if you cut their profit in half. So no. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you're a Patreon patron or a YouTube subscriber, we really appreciate it. If you are either of those or neither of those, please remember to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account because we get paid a couple bucks a month for that, and you got to renew that every month. So if you're watching this, go to the instructions below and link your accounts, please. Costs you nothing, and we'll get paid. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next time.